Good afternoon, dear colleagues. UCMC continues its work, and today our guests are colleagues who made us fall in love with their project. We invited them to present their project here on the basis of the UCMC, and the topic of the presentation today is village schools in Poltava region, a site of attention for UNESCO or not. What is the project? We will see on the photographs, and we will listen to the participants of the project. It will be presented by Olga Gerasymiuk, project initiator, first deputy head of the NCTC, Maksym Ivanov, project researcher, photographer, Ivan Bykov, director of Ivan Bykov architecture workshop, Oksana Chepelyk, artist, and Olena Zadorozhnya, representative of the Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine. The floor is yours, and then we will ask you questions. Microphone. Good afternoon. My name is Maksym, and I would like to tell you about the schools of Lohvitske Zemstva. What do you know about Ukrainian modern architecture? Not about Austrian secession, but about Ukrainian branch of that old European fashion in those days. In fact, this is quite an interesting topic. Some people could think of the house of Poltava local governor, and that was built by Krychevsky in Poltava, but the others are not known to the public. But in fact, there are many buildings like that. And the first one who systematized this heritage is Viktor Chepelyk. This is the Ukrainian modern, which was this book was the main book in his life, and without him we will not know much. We wouldn't know much. He discovered for us the theory of this style. He discovered for us Sly Stone, who was the theoretician of that style. He was the craftsman in ceramics, musician, artist, also the architect. And here we can see what are the 7 architectural principles which were formulated by Sly Stone, and he also and Viktor Chepelyk systematized it all. These are the things which differ Ukrainian modern from any other architectural style or other types of modern. And Sly Stone implemented these principles in his projects, in his designs of the school buildings. That is the watercolor. This painting is in Lohvitsky Museum of Nature, and that is the only original that we have. But in publications of those days we can see certain things. These are also the projects, the designs of our schools. That is small school, big school. If you pay attention to towers, and also the six-corner windows on the roof. These are the signs of Ukrainian architectural modern. And that is what we are trying to present. That is another thing that has been preserved. That is also reprint from the publication of those days, the only plan of the school. These two schools were the pilot schools, and they were built in the villages Galinka and Mlyny. And this is the, we believe that's the photograph from Golinka. And the designs are very similar. But this is the photograph of those days. It's probably 1914, not later. These schools are there till now. That's Golinka and Mlyny. When I first saw the school in Kurinka, I believed that how interesting what was there before initially in the building, and I was surprised that in fact the building was specially built for schools, and that is what Ola told me, that there was such Ukrainian architect who constructed built many of such schools. And that's how my participation in the project started. If we look at the map, we will see the Lohvitsa Uyezd, Pavit. All these schools are located within the red boundary. And that's the territory of 3 regions and 6 districts. Poltava region, Sumy region, and Chernigiv region. That is what we found out ourselves. These are the points where we found the schools. The 3 black dots show those which did not survive. We know about them, but they did not survive. And that is one of them in Zapadinci. It got burned quite recently, probably the fire was set there on purpose in 2011. That's a very beautiful school. A lot of money was invested into construction of that, and that is the most interesting project. Unfortunately, we don't have any schools of that style. The same year, or maybe a year before, the school in Sencha was dismantled. It did not survive either. And in Ruchki, in Poltava region, there is also a school which is getting ruined. 2 of them are in very bad condition. That's the school in Ruchki and Shmigli. Both villages are dead, basically, and it would be difficult to do something to preserve them. Besides, some schools are destroyed on purpose. Like in Rutka village, you can see it. They took out the roofing You can see that it's taken out completely. It's done so that in a year, in 2 years after winter, the school starts getting ruined, and it could be disassembled and used as construction material. Now I would like to give the floor to Olga, and please put the slideshow with schools. Maksym, with who we started that project, started from explaining so that we understand what type of material it is. He was talking about the architectural part of it. I will tell you briefly about our project. We called it Lohvitsky Schools of Lohvitsa Zemstvo. It exists in the internet. We started it as a web page in February this year, but this web page was created and it was quite unexpected. It's an unbelievable story that such a niche topic, such a page which could be of interest only for some city crazy people, as people say, but suddenly this started to be shared, liked. Many people contacted us from all over Ukraine, those who were born there, the architects who are here also. Ivan represents them. I will tell about other people, but that is what gave us a lot of impetus. We realized that this could be done without just saying that nothing is impossible, that everything has perished, that no one cares, and why do we need all these ruins when such and such thing is happening in the country? Because our project for us and for other people proves that these were very well related things, and from that our attitude to life could get restored, our soul. But when we return ourselves, when we get back our identity, we will live differently. That's what this project showed to us. I read this story back in 1999. There was the article of Georgy Shabanov in the newspaper. He has not survived, unfortunately, where he wrote about Sly Stone. And this name for us is like an indicator, because everything that we are doing now is called searching for Sly Stone. Who was Sly Stone? Probably he's looking at us from the heaven, because he did not probably expect that such things will be remembered 100 years after. What is important for us is to take out all that plastering that was put there in Soviet times, in the years of repressions, when it was a lot was done so that Ukrainians are not mentioned. Then, together with my assistant, I was an MP. I had an assistant, and we found people who could have helped us, and we started writing to districts so that people confirm whether these schools exist. We got some of them, but later, now basically we started this project very actively. We understand that this was not all the data, because if you look at the register of memory in those of those areas. There's nothing left there but monuments to Lenin, monuments to soldiers. They are there, luckily, they are preserved, and nothing from what talks about our different life, the life that we lived. There was nothing about that, and so we started it. And we took a car with Maksym and we went to these forests looking for such houses, and you see them on the screen. There are 53 that we found. And people who lived in these villages, they have never realized that it all exists like a big project. They were saying that this is semi-demolished. We were asking, do you have a 100-year school? And they were saying, somewhere in the forest there was something. What was there? And they were asking us, why do you need it? Do you want to buy a summer house that characterizes how we found it today when we are talking to people about what they own. And this year we put together all these objects. Maksym has photographed them. The architects, Ivan will tell us, are drawing them. When we put them all together into one exhibition, when we showed to people, everyone was expressed, because Poltava region is not just V novel, it's not just dumplings, it's not just Zadorozhnya fair, which is like a marketplace, but that is the history, rich culture. They understand that this is something that was just there next to them. When we started traveling, we found many people, we met many people who studied there, who remember those who studied, those who taught there. And some started coming to us, to their village, to their own village, to native village. And today there is one enthusiast here, the teacher of the institute, pedagogical institute, who lives in Kiev. Now he's one of the most active volunteers. He goes to the village. He made this special plaque to preserve the building. But that all means how wide coverage this topic has, and maybe we will need to have more meetings to explain all the details, because we have so many great people involved, many volunteers, young people are very much interested in that, and they want to return life to these places which now are considered to be without any perspective. We read that the village is dying, that no one cares about the village, there's no money there, no one's interested, the schools are closed, and this process goes on and on. You see that Ruchki, we wanted to cry when we approached these ruins. In the middle, inside, it's even dangerous. These Ruchki, they died. They look like that. The bushes, some road covered by grass, which you practically do not see. And the impression was that out of everything, only the cemetery is left. That is how life looks like. And nearby is the cemetery, which is clean, because people go back there to their parents. It's all in towels in flowers. The dead are there, but everything else is in such a condition. And that is what pushed us even more to our activity. I can talk a lot, but I would like to briefly say what we've managed to do.
Besides that exhibition, which you see today, in Poltava region, Olena will explain more. We attend all those villages. We tell stories to people. What happened? What are the schools about? By the way, this school disappeared, was totally ruined in course of my going around the administrative authorities in Kiev, where I, by the way, got a reply that there was no money. And during all my going to authorities, the school in Sencha was totally demolished. Even the bricks were removed from the foundation. By the way, in Sencha, the gas is produced, and this is rather a big village. And when we asked what happened to this, because small children told me, that man came and removed all the construction materials. That construction materials are higher quality, by the way. You can find bricks with personal stamps of the masters. You can find old oak, etc., old tiles of good quality. So after our publication, local teachers joined efforts to at least create the model of that old school and commemorate the memory of that demolished school, which was demolished in order to find enough material to build up a farm for pigs. I think that we should be proud of that pieces of art which we have. Thus, also, we revived the old Ukrainian tradition of so-called Taloka. Taloka means that the entire community on some special day comes together to do some work jointly. This happened in village Haasika, where we had two such events, organized events on volunteer events. By the way, at the moment when we arrived to this very school, to Haasika, which you see on the picture, in Soviet times, this was a special hospital for the alcohol addicts. And very long ago, in pre-hospital times, my father was a student in this school, and I commit to revive this school despite all the money which it will require. In Haasika, we gathered more than 100 people, even veterans who came from the front line arrived. They brought the elements of their frontline field life. and we cooked in the utensils that they brought. Also, young children, teenagers, former teachers, current teachers, elderly people, and we cleaned up the school, and we also cut the wood around the school, cut the bushes. By the way, in all those villages where these schools, these 53 schools were opened, they were given the best locations, the best places in those villages, which easily could be used for churches. By the way, all those churches were community churches. That is, the education there was free and for poor children, for children from poor families. By the way, the idea to launch the project belonged to mother of famous Ukrainian poetry Ukrainka, to Olena who has got that idea of erecting buildings in Ukrainian style. And here, only in this very project, those towers were not preserved in many places, because this was so typical feature of Ukrainian style that the authorities which existed later, that regime which existed on that lands later, they wanted to destroy these national roots in architecture and from memory of people. In Khristanivka, we met Oksana Chepelyk, maybe a famous volunteer who is rather famous in Facebook, and she relocated to that village, and they try to revive life in this village, to revive the village. And in course of doing this, their family, children, her husband, they started to clean up this old building, 100-year-old building, and posted this picture in internet, and we immediately recognized one of our schools which were part to this project of 53 Ukrainian schools in the region, in province. I think that we should not just reconstruct the buildings and we should revive the life in those villages. And by the way, in process of doing this, we found a lot of people who kept saying, look, we have that old church, that old cemetery, that old palace, and suggested that we would revive them, while we responded to them with our own example and said that we tried to do that. You may try to do your part in your village. There is more than 100 years, almost 100 years, when Sly Stone died in 1933. He died in the period of great famine in Ukraine. First, he was exiled from his native village from his home, and then he lived in Mirhorod, and there was the spa spa facility in Mirhorod, and unfortunately it was demolished. When we arrived to Mirhorod, we tried to find the traces of Sly Stone. Oh, we were almost unable to find it. Only in the College of Ceramics we found just some pieces of art created by him. And then we went to the cemetery and promised to him that we would do everything possible to revive his heritage. Our colleague Anatoly Zotov, who is an architect by background, spent the whole night in internet. He had found the family, the traces of the family of Sly Stone. His son, his daughter left to the United States, and we still have to double check whether she is really a daughter of Sly Stone. But what impressed us most was that she is dealing with architecture today. And before transferring this microphone to my colleagues, I would like to mention that despite the fact that I was born in Poltava region, and I had some sense, some feeling towards these old schools, I needed proof that this was really a precious architectural object. And fortunately, I met a widow of architect Chepelyk who inspired me. She proved to be a researcher in architecture and arts area. She is mother, by the way, of Oksana Chepelyk. Probably you know Miss Oksana Chepelyk, who is an artist. And today we are very happy to have you here and to show you our first accomplishments. With this, I'm very pleased to give now the floor to Oksana. Thank you very much for doing this important work at all levels. At the level of reviving our architectural heritage, at the level of organizing joint action, which mobilizes civil society, and at the level of bringing back our Ukrainian identity. I think that it's not just a limited scope of work. I think that it is a very profound aspect of our existence, especially in times of war, and especially in respect of all the problems with violence which we have. Against this background, our contemporary background, the issue of rescuing Lohvitsa province schools it becomes important because these are not just schools or village schools. This is actually a demonstration, a manifestation of the Ukrainian national growth, of the progress in Ukrainian national culture, in Ukrainian national music, Ukrainian national architecture. and Ukrainian architects and artists and painters at that time, 100 years ago, started to pay attention at Ukrainian folk architecture. Some of them paid attention at Ukrainian Baroque style, which was considered to be one of the peak levels in development of our culture. The Western Baroques, the Western scholars believe that Ukrainian Baroque style could be seen as a continuation of the Western Baroque style, also with a big national contribution. While Ukrainian modern architecture developed in parallel with the Western modern style, and of course, it was related to secession, to Jugendstil, but at the same time, it was equally grounded on Ukrainian traditions, and it chronologically developed in the same period. In early 20th century, we have got the pearls of Ukrainian modern architecture style when Krzyzewski built up the Poltava local authorities building in Poltava, the spa facility in Myrgorod, and some other buildings were erected. By the way, this was not just an artistic phenomenon. It was also the political phenomenon, because the Russian Empire tried to destroy everything national. The typically Ukrainian shape of church domes were substituted with typically Russian shapes of domes, which was useless but worked effectively in destruction of the national memory. And this way, Russian Empire tried to mark the territory of the empire, destroying national memory at the level of architecture. And from this point of view, the use of the elements of folk architecture in the works of professional architects and development of this new Ukrainian modern style was very important. It similarly, when the Ukrainian Renaissance movement in early 1930s was destroyed, and the representatives of this movement were killed. The creation, the creative work of that artists, that architects, that masters, it also was destroyed, and you see the result here. Olga mentioned that towers which were erected on the schools, this was the indication, this was the sign of the public building. It is similar to the church bell tower. When you put a bell on the tower to sound it and to bring people to the gathering when it is necessary. And similarly, it was with the schools. So I would like to wish participants of the project a lot of success. And I would like now to show the book which was mentioned at the very beginning of our discussion. This book, written by my father, was published after his death, unfortunately, some 10 years ago, it was suggested to republish it, but unfortunately it was not republished. So, and now scholars who wish to use this book, they have to make copies from this rare publication. I would like to express hope that the second circulation of this book will become possible.
Потім її всі читали.
Yes, I remember how we were reading this book. Olena Zadorozhnya, we have very little time left, but we will try to squeeze into the time that's left. I just wanted, when colleagues were talking, I wanted to add something, but let's talk about main things. Today I represent Taras Kutavy, the Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine. In February, he was invited by Olga to join this initiative, and I was integrated into the project Schools of Lochvice Zemstvo. In fact, the main topic that is of importance, when there was this Kristynivsky get-together, one person said that the souls of some people are as empty as the windows of these schools, and we are trying to bring life to these windows and to schools. And Kristynivka is quite a perspective pilot project, and I believe that we'll be working together on it, because that is very important when there are people who care, who know what they want to do there. Oksana Chepelyk was mentioned, and she has a vision of this project, how to organize a cultural educational center for the development of the community there. This could be done on the basis of this school. It's about case of development of the village at local level. One thing is state policy, and another one is when it's about development of small local projects. And our ambitious aim is to make this project the international project. When the experts, architects saw what we are working on, when they saw the buildings, they said that this project could claim to, could draw attention of UNESCO, because UNESCO concentrates its attention on local projects. What we've seen also is the vertical cooperation at all the levels, and we don't need money that people ask us about very often. When people say, where do you get resources? You don't need any resources to go to the village and tell people what school they have in their village. You just need to show that your attitude is serious and that at your level you're ready to do all you can. We were surprised because you get used to addressing some agencies many times, but the village mayors, the heads of the village, of the villages where schools are located, they are very open to us and they help us a lot. Talking about the level of the region, I would like to mention Valentina Vazhdayenko, who's head of the commission which is dealing with the monuments of architecture. When we came to her, she was very happy, and Ivan will also say a few words, and I would like him to say about how this project was perceived in the region. I believe they are interested in preserving these monuments. It's interesting to talk to people who join us in our work. when you call into a village to say that okay, we have this project, and when we call some villages, they say, yes, we've read about that project. Why haven't you come to us? One person, for example, said, in the context of decentralization, why are you presenting this project in Kiev? We present it everywhere, and our presentations are very important locally, because it is important to talk to many people, and talking about why are we here today. We are here so that more people learn about our project, so that they can help us communicate to those people who are interested and who can help us. Because this is a multivectoral project, and we do need contacts, communications, and that's why we're here. Thank you. When Olena was saying that we are welcome everywhere, but sometimes we go to Haasika and people block the road and they say, no, first come to us, because we also have a school. We got together, and the museum of your schools will be here in our village. Also, these are magnets. There are very few of them left. We prepared them to leave to people. If you put it on the refrigerator, if people put it on the refrigerator, they will know that they have such a wonderful school. Also, the photographs which you see, they are in such files, and that is also our interaction. We are showing that this is one project, and we give them to every village councils, to every school, so that they put these photographs somewhere in the club, for example, so that people could go there, can see it and understand what it is. And I would like to invite Ivan. He's our architect who joined our project, and he knows some details.
Колеги, нас всього до 4.
We have only 4 minutes left. The Bykov's architect
the shop of the architect Bykov carries out development of all the designers' documentation for this project. We have created such profiles, architectural profiles for all these schools. We have already made 9 such profiles for 9 architectural objects. Geographically, the area of these schools is in Poltava, partially Sumy, and partially Chernihiv region. When we just launched our project, only 3 schools in each of those regions were registered as architectural monuments. Now, thanks to our work, the first set of these schools has got this status of architectural monuments. Now the second set of the schools, for which we prepare necessary documentation, are ready for submission to get this status. What we are speaking about in 1890, the Russian emperor issued a decree in line with which construction in Ukrainian national style was prohibited. Ukrainian modern style is interesting because Ukrainian figures managed to invent this new style, which was not subject to the emperor decree, and the artistic value and historical value of these schools is that they are preserved as a complex, as a set of buildings, which is relatively better preserved than other architectural monuments like churches, for example. And by the way, very interesting detail, all the schools were constructed far from churches. And in his memories, Sly Stone mentioned that the school should be an attraction for the local community and attract not as a church with religious ideas, but attract as the knowledge center. Also, what is interesting about those schools, their premises are transformable. That is, you may remove the inside walls and create one big space inside the schools. Also, those interesting where the towers also he had very interesting system of ventilation, very interesting system of smoke extraction pipes, etc. At the same time, this design of schools is a manifestation of Ukrainian roots, and when children and adults in those schools, they saw the schools in the past. They usually call them Shevchenka schools or Shevchenka type schools. Unfortunately, just some out of that schools are used as schools. Unfortunately, many villages are becoming deserted, and our wish is to restore those villages and to demonstrate to people what a marvelous world existed in those villages, which is not finally destroyed today due to Stalin's policy. One of our ambitions today is to submit this set of buildings to the UNESCO competition as the heritage of UNESCO. We believe that these schools have a chance to become the UNESCO object, at least to become an item in the preliminary list of UNESCO, because they are very nationally specific, so to say. Thank you, dear colleagues, for coming to us today, for discussion for attracting attention to this topic. I would like to thank to mass media, by the way. We have a unique media coverage for our Facebook project. Mass media, which try to find mainly scandalous events, they nevertheless try to come and to shoot our schools and to describe our project. Also, I would like 1 minute of your attention to show, to describe the decoration. It was suggested by Olena and implemented by Sly Stone. Many schools are wooden, but which are warmed with a brick, and this brick outside wall is made in a form of Ukrainian national embroidery, and in many schools it has been preserved. There are 3 main types of this decoration. I'm terribly sorry. We will ask questions in the corridor. I hope that preserving heritage and culture is also possible.